Let's talk about Joe Biden's continued concern about the rise of oligarchs, the rise of billionaires. I mean, the fact that you have billionaires that are going to be pushing to deregulate industries to make their multinational corporations richer, to get more tax cuts to make their billionaire buddies richer, that are going to pressure the government to make their monopolies safer from being broken up, and a lot pulling levers. And this comes, by the way, after 40 years of the greatest income redistribution in the history of humankind, from America's middle class to America's billionaire class. And that economic transfer, that's just speeding up by the minute.
You know, that is absolutely right. And I think I want to suggest that farewell address is a milestone culturally in this country, because even a decade ago, I wrote my book, Winners Take All, which is about oligarchs and the rise of these trends. You're talking about 6 years ago. And I remember I would talk to relatively progressive people who were like, you're being too harsh to be critical of these billionaires. They have foundations. They're doing nice things. Fast forward 6 years, it's a different conversation. The president of the United States talking about this, using the word oligarchs. On Google, I think that night, what is an oligarch was the leading search term. And the reason it's important is I think Americans are much smarter and sensitive to threats to democracy that look like an insurrection or look like voter suppression. Right. We're aware of that kind of threat to democracy. Ultra wealth that can buy political power, that can control what people are seeing on their algorithms, is a kind of power, kind of threat to democracy that Americans have been less intelligent in resisting. And to have this president, who's not Bernie Sanders, who's not Elizabeth Warren, who's not AOC, to have this president going out with that, the threat of ultra wealth to democracy, I think is a deeply important cultural milestone.
Well, you know, I'm a small government conservative. I do believe, for all of its flaws, capitalism works. It moves people out of poverty, but uncontrolled, unregulated capitalism wrecks lives. And I think most importantly, Mara, what I was saying in the lead up to this election was, we have to not only worry about threats to American democracy, for those of us who believe that American capitalism works when regulated properly, we need to be concerned about threats to American capitalism and what we've all, grown up believing until this generation, that what every parent's always believed under this system: I did better than my parents.
Right. Yep.
My children are going to do better than me. So I'm going to work harder at the plant. I'm going to work harder, at the hardware store. I'm going to work harder at the restaurant, because I'm going to be able to get my kids into a college, and they're going to be able to do better than me. That's what American capitalism provided for certain segments of society for a very long time. That's going away.
Yeah, well, I think that compact, that agreement, is collapsing. And I think that is the source of a lot of the anger in our politics. Also, a lot of the ability of people like Donald Trump to exploit that anger. It makes society weaker. It makes our ability as Americans, as part of a democracy, to band together in democratic small d coalitions weaker. And, I think you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to have an MBA to know that these big companies have essentially invaded our lives. And it feels a lot like a monopoly. I mean, we're buying and engaging with a handful of companies every day, when we're on our phones, when we're purchasing things from Amazon, whatever it may be. Americans don't need an MBA to know what's going on. And I also just have to say that I think it's concerning to me that we are, I think, uniquely in some ways struggling to have this conversation that you have begun early because of the fear that we all have of socialism historically. So you can't even really have a conversation about it, which is ironic to your point, Joe, because capitalism, I thought, was supposed to be about competition. And that's not really what is happening.
And so here's a great example of that. So you look at what happened in Silicon Valley, and even people who invest in startups, they're supporting candidates who are actually fighting people like Lina Khan, who want to break up the monopolies. Like, one of the stories I always told, and Mika unfortunately would always hear this on, whenever we were at colleges or if we were at, but she always heard this story over and over again. And it was like, I was talking about American capitalism. I said, Steve Jobs was right. That Apple ad was right. We're a little crazy. Like, we're different. We think different. I said, only in America could a group of 6 or 7 hippie burnouts from Berkeley go to their dad with a $5,000 loan, say, hey, can we use your garage? Sure. And they started Microsoft. You can't do that now, in many cases, because Microsoft is a monopoly.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazon is a monopoly. I mean, I could go down the line. 10 tech companies are a monopoly. Capitalism is all about competition. You have a crazy idea. I mean, that's, by the way, that's what is amazing about an immigrant comes to America. And I hear this all the time. I wish Caddy were here because she would talk about it in Britain. You talk to friends in France. You talk to friends around the world. You come in from another country, you're suspect. In America, you come here, you have an idea that's going to make people money. Come on, let's start up this company. I mean, look at all the immigrants in Silicon Valley. That's what we used to be. It's getting harder and harder, though, like you said, because the entry as an entrepreneur is so much harder, because if you get too far down the line, you will be crushed by Microsoft. You will be crushed by Amazon. You will be crushed by SpaceX. You will be crushed by all of these other companies.
And even if you're not a direct competitor to Amazon, if you own a small business, you're getting fleeced. So we've made it very difficult for small and medium-sized businesses to operate in this country, and very easy for the monopolies to.
And I think what compounds it is those of us that have been out of the being able to enter to the higher echelon of American business. Now we're fighting DEI, so you're knocking the ladder down, and you have these tech oligarchs running things, and now it looks like they're influencing government. So if you've not only got Musk and et al. Dealing with that we control these tech empires, and now we influence the president, and the president is saying we're going to end diversity, equity, and inclusion, then where does it leave a lot of people that fought, women, blacks, others, the last 60 years to get in, and now you shut the roof off on us, and you have the government to enforce it. That's the fear.
That's why that word oligarchy on the screen right now is so important. This is not an attack on capitalism.
No,
it was an attack on people who use their economic power to buy political power and rig the game against everybody else with a dream.
Well, I would just say, I put it another way, this is not an attack on capitalism. This is a defense of capitalism. Now, Lawrence O'Donnell, you've had time to go over the Capitol dining room, have breakfast. We hope you've enjoyed your breakfast. We got sidetracked on a conversation about oligarchy and American capitalism. Let's give Lawrence, exactly, the last word.
Joe, as you know, the only memorable line of the 8 years of the Eisenhower presidency was in his farewell address, where he warned the country about the military-industrial complex, and no greater authority to warn us of that. Winning World War II general, becomes president of the United States, sees the development of the defense industries, which, by the way, did not exist before World War II. We really didn't. Before World War II, we were like the 18th largest army in the world, and that's how ill-prepared we were for that. And we had to build it all we had to build the army during during the war while winning the war. Then it became a permanent institution, and the enormity of it just kept growing. And obviously the military spending, which people expected to decline after World War II, found a new way of increasing over time in this thing they called the Cold War. And President Biden's warning last night, at the farewell address of the tech industrial complex does have, it feels the ring of that Eisenhower warning, the kind of ring that we will be remembering, will be pointing to for a long time.
All right, Lawrence O'Donnell, thank you very much. We'll be watching The Last Word weeknights at 10 p.m. Eastern right here on MSNBC.